This is my thoughts on AEW All Out 2025. Before I get into the actual meat of the video, I just want to say that I won't be able to give my thoughts on the buy-in matches, as for some reason the stream that I normally watch the buy-in on, which was AEW's official one, didn't have any matches on it. It just showed talking heads between Bryan Danielson and Renee Paquette, and so I wasn't able to watch it. And I've looked in to try and find them, and I just couldn't find them. So I apologise that I can't give you my thoughts on them. That being said, though, let's just start with the opener of the actual show, which was Edge and Christian versus FTR. Now, I personally was really excited for this match because, for me, Edge and Christian will hold a close part in my heart because, granted, I didn't grow up with them in the Attitude Era, but obviously Edge was the top heel when I was first getting into wrestling and WWE. Obviously Christian was always around, and then when I went back and watched like TLC and TLC 2, you got Edge and Christian, that's great. And FTR have been one of my favourite tag teams for years now. Obviously going back to like their classics at takeovers with American Alpha and DIY. So to finally get these two in a match was very exciting. But the actual show kicks off with a backstage segment, which for me really could have just been on Dynamite or Collision. As Edge and Christian arrived at the arena, they bumped into Wendell Clark, a hockey player, don't personally know, and an actor called Bubbles, never heard of him, I'm afraid, sorry if that disappoints people, and then his alter ego, Green Bastard, again, never heard of these guys, so I can't exactly give my thoughts on it. I just feel like this wasn't the best way to open a pay-per-view. This should have been on Dynamite. That being said, though, the match itself was solid. It was alright. I feel like they could do more, which I think they're saving for the next time these two teams clash. Starting off with, obviously, this being in Toronto, hometown for Edge and Christian, and Christian starts off building to the hot tag from Edge, and once Edge does get in, we get a nice homage and call back to his greatest rival, John Cena, with Edge hitting an AA and a 5-knuckle shuffle, to which commentary do acknowledge, without saying who they're talking about, they do acknowledge the fact that that is a reference to one of Edge's past rivals, which was a nice homage considering Cena hit a spear in one of his last matches, even though WWE said that that was in reference to Roman Reigns, when it really wasn't. Then the hometown guys decided to try and homage to one of their greatest tag team rivals in the Hardys, hitting a Swanton Bomb and Twist of Fate combo. This led to Stokely interfering and getting involved, only for the first of many surprises on this show, which I'll gladly talk about later. The debut of Beth Phoenix, Edge's real life wife, debuting and coming down and dealing with Stokely and giving Edge and Christian the balance back of an even match. At this point, the match could have like wrapped up, but for some reason they carried on going for a few minutes, and then it just, after a bit more, it was a spear and a win from Edge. After a bit more back and forth, like I said, you could have wrapped up the match pretty much after Beth's debut, which was really good and a really great reaction from the crowd. After the match, though, we got the Patriarchy coming out, handcuffing Edge, and then FTR taking out both Christian and Beth with spike pile drivers. Clearly setting up that these three teams are not done feuding with each other, and we're going to carry on getting this, I say nostalgia run, but this partnership between Edge and Christian. So yeah, solid match and a good opener. Afterwards, we got the match between Big Bill and the returning Eddie Kingston, making his return after an injury 16 months ago. And Eddie's back on AEW TV. This match could have really been on Dynamite or Collision, because it was a very short, not a lot happening match. It was more just an introduction to the fans, reintroducing Eddie back into the fold of AEW. But because Eddie is such a beloved wrestler and a character on TV, I can understand why this match was on pay-per-view. Like I said, it wasn't a much. It went, I think, about 6 minutes. It wasn't a lot. The audience really seemed to be happy to see Eddie back, and Eddie picked up the win with the spinning back fist, only to be jumped by both Big Bill and Brian Keith after the match, which led to Hook coming out for the save and seemingly setting up a team between Eddie and Hook, which I'm all for. That to me sounds like a really fun tag team. So yeah, a fine match. The match itself was not really worth much, but it was more of this is Eddie coming back to TV and getting reintroduced. So yeah. Afterwards, we got I would say the first great match of the night. This match really stole the show to begin with, which by the end of the show makes it more interesting, because we got several great matches on the show. It was MJF versus Mark Briscoe in a tables and thumbtacks match. Obviously, this feud has gotten really intense over the weeks that they've been feuding, with MJF bringing up Mark's sadly passed away brother Jay and threatening to set Mark on fire after covering him in gasoline or petrol. And the stipulation for this match really is because with a feud that this intense warrants a match of this intensity. And so the match actually started off with both men in the ring, MJF getting out for some heel heat, only for Mark to empty 4 massive buckets full of tacks covering the whole ring in thumbtacks, which led to, personally, my favourite part of the match, which was, for the first part, was the two of them going back and forth, more or less working to see who's the first one to go into the attacks. A very slow paced sort of way, but it worked because it brought the intensity and the anxiety of, oh crap, who's going to be the first one to go through the tax, which was great. And then, of course, for more heel heat, MJF put Mark through onto the tacks first. And this is something else. Mark takes several bad bumps into the tacks and gets tacks everywhere, including his head. So yeah, he really earned this. Then we got a bit later on. We got a table set up after MJF once again put all the tables away, and that we got obviously MJF going through the tacks as well for great heat. Very bloody, very brutal, and that. And then comes to the end of the match where MJF seemingly tries to put Mark through the table, which has now been covered in even more thumbtacks, but Mark fights back, hits a froggy bow through the table on MJF, then hits another one and then Mark Driller to win. I've not done this match justice. If you like this sort of hardcore, brutal, bloody sort of match, please do check it out, because what I've just recapped there and given my thoughts on isn't enough to do it justice. And yet again, MJF showing that he's willing to put his body on the line in these sort of hardcore matches to give us a great performance. But yeah, fantastic match. After the tables and tacks match, we got I'd say there was no bad match on this card, but definitely the most lackluster match of the card for me, in the Hurt Syndicate versus Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, or as they get christened in this match, the Demand. Yeah, like I said, not a terrible match, just it obviously no way it could follow the hardcore match that just was previous. And it was alright. The not MJF, MVP, I'm afraid, sorry, obviously works over Ricochet before it's MVP's turn, building to the hot tag between Shelton and Bobby, and then the match breaks down. We get GOA and Bobby and Shelton going at it, only for them to get left out of put out into the ringside, and then it's just a numbers game as MVP tries to fight off all three, but can't, as the numbers are too much, and Ricochet gets the win with the GOA, as they've been called the Demand. Yeah, like I said, it was a fine match. It isn't terrible, just that it was there. I think on a show that, and this I will get into more into the whole show as my thoughts in the conclusion, but for a show that has quite a few matches, this was definitely one you could probably have done without. You could have done this on like Collision. So yeah. Luckily, the pace was able to pick up a lot more in the next match, which was Mercedes Moné versus Rio for the TBS Championship. I've obviously given my thoughts on Moné. Like I said, I'm not going to go into it much again. If you want to hear about my thoughts on her, please watch the previous AEW video, which was Forbidden Door. That being said, though, this was a really good match. I really got into this match. I really liked it. For somebody who... It's one of those weird things where you have to really think, oh yeah, Rio was the first AEW Women's Champion. And because she's not always been on TV as much as others, you do forget how good she is. And this was a really good match between the two, of both high flying and technical submission offense between both, and it was excellent, with Rio really coming into her in getting the spotlight, I should say, throughout this match. And like I said, there was never any doubt in my mind that Monet was going to lose her TBS championship. She's got 9 belts at the moment. So why would she lose? Nothing against any of the other companies, but why would she lose the biggest belt she holds first and before she reaches 10 belts? So yeah, in my mind, for me, she was never in doubt in losing it. That being said though, Rio really got a few close calls where you actually got to the point where, oh no, she might actually dethrone Monet with some really good technical submissions. But in the end, obviously, it's the same sort of story as always. Monet retains her TBS championship by hitting a lung blower and locking in the Monet maker, making Rio tap out. Really good match. Obviously, picked up the pace of the pay-per-view after the 6-man tag. And just, like, even with my personal thoughts to Monet, she doesn't disappoint in her matches. So yeah, a solid women's match on the card. Afterwards, we got the AEW Unified Championship Trios match of Kazuchika Okada versus Konosuke Takeshita versus Mascara Dorada. I hope I pronounced all the names right. I do apologise if I did. Best match of the night thus far. This was a standout match. Incredible triple threat match with each man getting so much in and showing what they are capable of. But for me, this might sound a bit of a surprise. Even though the in-ring work was brilliant and top-notch, it was a commentary for me that was so incredible and like more investing. Because you had Bryan Danielson on commentary throughout the whole night, who flowers must be given to him. He is incredible throughout the night, which I'll come on to more later. But Don Callis was also on commentary, and that was the interesting fact, because you've got Katesta, who's obviously part of the Don Callis family, and Okada, who's now part of the Don Callis family. You got 2 guys that hate each other, that are in the same faction, and you got Callis on commentary, and it's for a championship. And he's got to play this without looking like he's giving favourites, and he's calling out when one of his guys is doing a good thing and when they're not. And that was fascinating to me, because then you got Excalibur, Danielson, all pointing out like, what's this? This isn't a good move. How do you explain this? And it was very fascinating in that, because like Callis is like said, like, it doesn't matter who wins because we've got the better odds. So over half of the participants in this match are Don Callis family members, so as long as one wins, it doesn't matter. Avoiding who his favourite is. But going back to the match itself, great match. To begin with, you kept Okada and Takeshita away from each other, with Dorada being inserted in between the pair of them, fighting with both. And Dorada could have easily been an afterthought in this match, but he was really putting on a show to make you not count him out. Obviously, again, he was never in contention of winning the actual championship, but he does put on a good performance here. Fantastic. But once the two, Okada and Takeshita, do come to blows, it's amazing, and just shows that these two, when they do have their singles match, which they do set up at the end of the match, is going to be great, and just whoever's going to turn on the other and potentially leave the Don Callis family, it's going to be a really good moment. And like I said, great match, and Okada picks up the win with the Rainmaker to Dorada. And like I said, we got the setup for a future match with both men getting in each other's faces. Like I said, great match. Please do check this match out. And do listen to the commentary, because it is... the story they tell on commentary is so good for me. And like I said, best match of the night thus far. Afterwards, we got the heated feud of Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley in a coffin match. Our second hardcore match of the night. And the reason why I say hardcore match is, look at the two who were in this match. It was... the best way to describe it is a car crash. It was... from the get-go, and when I mean the get-go, as Jon Moxley was making his entrance through the crowd, Darby jumped him, and that's where the match began, in the crowd. With obviously Darby brawling with Mox into the crowd. Darby took one of the worst bumps you could possibly take, where he landed back first on the concrete steps of the arena, which has to be one of the, like I said, one of the worst bumps you could ever take, because that is not a nice thing to take. Obviously, this then started leading towards the ring area, where obviously blood. It's a Jon Moxley match, so are you surprised that there's blood in it? No. With Mox bleeding first as Darby returns the favour after Mox busted his ear open in Forbidden Door with a fork. Darby does the same to Mox here. And Darby gets a lot of offense in, and that before on commentary, even though he previously said that he would not get involved in the match, because obviously he has a lot of connections to the match because Mox retired him. Danielson moved a duffel bag nearer to Darby, and it turned out he had a plastic bag, the same plastic bag that Mox used on Danielson before retiring him. And Darby uses it to get the advantage and has this match won, only for a returning Pac, our second surprise of the night, with Pac finally coming back, rejoining the Death Riders, and hits a razor's edge on Darby to the outside onto a coffin before beating him up, putting him in a body bag, and putting him in the coffin for Mox to win. This is where I feel the match itself, fun, hardcore, lots of spots, too many to count. But my biggest issue with the match, personally, is, yet again, Darby never gets the actual big win. When are you going to give Darby the big win on a pay-per-view? Because he always gets so close, and then it's, he loses. And so yeah, the coffin gets taken out, and then we see later on in the night, though, the Death Riders leaving Mox alone with the coffin, only for Darby to jump out, attack Mox, put him in the body bag, and then set the body bag on fire. Obviously, this clearly isn't the end of the feud, and I personally think it might lead to a Inferno match, because why would you tease something with fire without leading to an Inferno match? And that's definitely one way to end a feud, with fire. So yeah, the match itself, it was alright. Definitely wasn't as good as the tables tag match hardcore wise, but still a lot of fun. Afterwards, we got the AEW Women's Championship match of Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter versus Tekla versus Chris Statlander in a fatal 4-way. It's clear, and this is another reason why I think there was a few matches you could have cut. It's clear that this match had some time cut because they kind of went into this match with the knowledge that they've not got long, and they put it in forward force and didn't stop until the end of the match. This was a great fast-paced multi-woman match, which brings me on to what it reminds me of the great match that also got time cut for a world championship of Rey Mysterio versus Randy Orton versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 22, where it was like, we haven't got long for this match, let's just go full force, top gear until the end of the match. And this was it. It was a brilliant match. Tekla for me was the standout, with her getting so much in this match, including a fun spot of her hanging in the top rope and suplexing each of her opponents off the top rope. We got the former champ, I should say, in Jamie Hayter versus Toni Storm, obviously rekindling their feud, teasing a future match between the two down the line, and everything. And yeah, the match was really kicking up a gear until the biggest shocker of the whole night for me. Chris Statlander won. She won the AEW Women's Championship. Not only did she win the AEW Women's Championship, she pinned the champion Toni Storm after getting the seatbelt roll up, which obviously I'm so happy for Chris, because obviously she's been a day one sort of person and has definitely deserved it. But I was shocked because 9 times out of 10 in these multi-person matches, the champ's always a shoe out to win, even though the odds are they're going to lose. They always just win. So to have Chris win with the seatbelt, and the same manoeuvre that Wheeler Yuta of the Death Riders told her to use, is quite interesting story-wise, that she's finally won the big one with the help of the Death Riders. And it was a real shock as the crowd did not know how to react, and then once they realised obviously there's a new champion, they were really happy, and then everything. So it was going to be interesting to see where this goes. And yeah, even though it was a short match, very fun. I really enjoyed it. Great match. But we got our second fatal 4-way match of the night of Brodito versus Jet Speed versus the Young Bucks versus the Don Callis families, Josh Alexander and Hechicero, in a 4-way ladder match for the AEW Tag Team Championships. Before I get into this match, there's no way I can do this justice and give like everything. You just need to see it. It's one of those matches that you need to see for yourself and experience. But I really like this match. I think having 4 teams is the right amount of competitors for a multi-man match. No more, because then it gets too muddy and you lose interest, because you lose concentration and you can't keep track of what's going on and how many people are there, because they get forgotten. What I'm trying to say with this is, this was 100% better than the TLC match at SummerSlam, where they had 6 teams in this match. And even with those 2 extra teams, it just muddied the whole match for me at SummerSlam. This, though, was the right amount of chaos, as it was big spot after big spot with everyone getting something in, especially Jet Speed, who really got a chance to shine and basically got the approval stamp of they're going to be future champs. They're going to be the future of this tag division. Maybe by the end of the year, but if not, 100% are going to be champs and top of the tag division next year. Yeah, lots of fun. Obviously, we got the Bucks and the Don Callis family teaming up as the heels before, obviously, their own greed falls them apart, and that with the Bucks trying to get the titles behind their back. And we got several fun spots of, obviously, ladders being used as weapons. Obviously, the big man Brody King using it as a ramming raid. Bandido using it whilst he does a moonsault off the top rope. And then we got a fun spot of everyone going through three tables being set up with everyone going through them, except for Brody King, hitting Mike Bailey with a sit-out slam onto a ladder bridge, which lays out Mike Bailey for the rest of the match. And with somehow Brodido are able to retain their tag championships in this chaotic fun match. And like I said, many matches on this card you need to check out. This though, you need to, because what I've just said is not going to do it justice. You need to witness how a multi-team ladder match should be done, and this is how I believe it should be done. But that wasn't it. As in, afterwards, the Bucks are left alone in the ring, only for a returning Jack Perry, who was teaming with them last year, only for him to jump them, attack them, but the numbers caught up, only for a video package to start playing with the return of Luchasaurus happening, and we got a Jurassic Express reunion, taking out the Young Bucks and standing tall. Now, this was a great moment and another return for both Perry and Luchasaurus, and the return of Jurassic Express to the tag division. My tiny little concern with this, obviously this can't be helped because obviously injuries cannot be foreseen, but obviously with what's happened with the patriarchy and bringing back Killswitch in replacement at Forbidden Door, it does kind of muddy this return because we've already seen Killswitch back. Obviously this being Luchasaurus, but besides that tiny nitpick that again I can't really have as a justified reason, because injuries happen at any time and you can't. Nick Wayne's ankle injury just couldn't be foreseen, so yeah, they had to do with what they could. But that being said though, the crowd loved this, and we've finally got Jurassic Express back, and to add another team to this already stacked tag division going into the new year. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that brings us to our main event of the night of Hangman Adam Page versus Kyle Fletcher for the AEW World Championship. And this was match of the night for me. This was a brilliant match, as a main event should be. It's how you leave them, and they left this show with a banger. Obviously, Kyle being the TNT champion, and the really great added stipulation to an already great match of if any member of the Don Callis family interfered during the match, Kyle would be stripped of the TNT championship. And that is a great element to show that a heel can go the distance without cheating, and that's what it did here. This was a spotlight on Kyle. Obviously, this being his first championship, world championship opportunity, his first pay-per-view main event, and he didn't disappoint. This was a spotlight to show the future of AEW, and he is the future. With the obviously Hangman coming in taped up with a bad shoulder, that allowed Kyle to take full advantage for the beginning, and Kyle was really great in this match. But the whole thing with the story in this match was Kyle is still too cocky, and his cockiness is his weakness, and was also his downfall, as he kept going to the well too many times with maneuvers, leading Hangman to fight back and able to hit a beautiful moonsault to the outside, which led to 2 table spots in the match, one being a brainbuster by Kyle into the timekeeper's area, and Hangman then returning the favour with a deadeye through one himself. The crowd were on their feet for this match. Obviously, Hangman being the perfect babyface to lead AEW that everyone can get behind, and Kyle is, like I said, great, and that cockiness is what was his downfall. So if he can get more humble and with more respect, he could be a great babyface in the near future. But the thing was, even though he did lose the match eventually, when Hangman hit a deadeye, which brings us to the other thing that made this match brilliant, is the fact that it had a 60-minute time limit, and it went when it got announced that 30 minutes had passed, it felt like it had only been like 10 for me. This match flew by, and that's how great the match was and what they were telling in the match. So yeah, once the announcement came, it was just big move after big move after big move from both men, just giving everything they had left in the tank. And that's what led to the finish, where on the top rope fighting, Hangman was able to hit a second rope deadeye, followed up by the buckshot, which obviously allowed him to pick up the win and retain the AEW World Championship. And even though Kyle lost, he's probably still the winner in some ways, because wins and losses do matter, but at the same time, it's the performance you put into a match, and Kyle put in such a performance that showed he can do this by himself. He didn't need the Don Callis family's interference. He's very capable of going and almost winning the World Championship. So, yeah, but like I said, it was only his cockiness that let him down in the end. But yeah, incredible match. Match of the night. Love it. Please do check out this match. And that brings me to my conclusion of the AEW All Out 2025. An incredible show with no bad matches on the show. Obviously, like I said, the 6-man was probably the most underwhelming, but wasn't a bad match. Obviously, you had Big Bill versus Eddie Kingston, which I said could have been a Dynamite or a Collision match, but Eddie deserved his return being on a pay-per-view. But yeah, having 10 matches is way too long, which led to the show being 5 hours, and that's not including what other matches were on the buy-in. Like I said, I wasn't able to watch it, which is really frustrating because I do like to watch the buy-in matches. But this whole show was just full of great moments, starting with the shocker of the night with Chris Statlander winning the AEW Women's Championship. The shock debut of Beth Phoenix in AEW. Several returns of like Jack Perry and Luchasaurus, Jurassic Express now back with Pac as well returning. It was full of surprises on this night. Fantastic commentary all throughout the night, especially by Danielson during the coffin match and the triple threat match. But it's always, they always say it's how you leave them, folks. And the way this show closed with Hangman and Kyle Fletcher, this was a solid pay-per-view. This was by far one of the best pay-per-views of the year, and compared to the other show that was on at started right as this show was finishing, this was immensely better than WrestlePalooza, which you can check out my thoughts and my video on that now on my channel. But yeah, All Out 2025, a brilliant show. Please do check it out, and thank you for watching. And check out my other reviews, including my WrestlePalooza review, thoughts review, and that's up on my channel now. So hope you enjoyed this video and see you soon. Bye.